It's time for Football at 4 with Andrew DiCecco from InsideTheBirds.com, and he just got out of the Eagles locker room, and we're taking a look at the matchups for this Eagles-Commanders game. So let's start with a couple things. Number one, Andrew, on the defensive side of the ball, Kevin Byard is here. I anticipate he will play. I want to get your thoughts on, number one, the trade and how he fits in and how he changes this defense.
Oh, well, you have to love the trade. You're getting a two-time All-Pro who is a seasoned veteran, very durable. He's going to immediately fortify that back end. Playing with Reed Blankenship, I think, really solidifies the middle of the back end. And I thought the value was great. You're getting someone who, yeah, he is 30 years old, but he does have a ton of ball production, and he's a big play type of player that you're adding to your secondary to complement what you already have with James Bradbury and Darius Slay.
So he steps in at safety, and you probably have Blankenship next to him. Do you, Andrew, look at the safety spot now as better than the safety spot a year ago?
Ooh, that's a tough question. So I would say yes, and the reason why is because now you have two ball hawks instead of just the one ball hawk. Marcus Epps, for as steady as he was just that. He was exactly that. He was a steady player. Didn't really factor in the turnover category or anything to that effect. But I think right now, Reed Blankenship, I actually picked him before the season to lead the Eagles in interceptions. I had him around 5. And Kevin Byard is a turnover machine in his own right. So I think right now you have two smart, tough back-end players there that are willing to come down and play the run, which also wasn't the case last year at the Gardner-Johnson missed a lot of tackles, whereas I think right now you have two sure tackling, ferocious type of players there on the back end.
So they're better at safety possibly, and then you have, of course, Slay and Bradbury. You hope to get Bradley Roby to play that slot position there. Overall, this secondary, a little different from last year, as you just said, at safety and, of course, at the slot position. We'll see how they held up, because I want to ask you, Andrew, were you impressed at how they held up last week with two safeties out and a corner missing against that Dolphins team? What were they able to do in the secondary, or was that more predicated on what they were able to do up front?
Well, they're able to provide a lot of pressure, and I think when the Eagles can send a tidal wave of pass rushers, they have the luxury of doing so. It really wears down on an offensive line, and it makes life easier on the back end. They're all working in concert to accomplish the same goal. But I really did think that you saw a good combination, particularly in the slot with Josiah Scott and Eli Ricks. I thought Eli Ricks really rose to the occasion at a big spot. The Eagles showed a lot of confidence in him to step in there. He played 13 reps the week before, hurt his knee, came in this on Sunday night, played, I believe it was 14 snaps in the slot, and was playing a lot looser and a lot more free. This is a foreign position to him. He didn't really play sans a sample size when he was a freshman at LSU. So I think that the Eagles have a good rotation of defensive backs, and I think that coinciding with the pressure really helped to sort of stave off the pretty explosive Miami passing offense.
When you look at the matchup this week against Washington, that up front, the guys you talk about, Sweat, Reddick, Jalen Carter, and the rest of the crew, how do they match up with this Washington team? Because they did play them the first time. So what did you see from that first game and takeaways as how that will translate into game number 2 against them?
Yeah, a lot of push up the middle there. The Washington offensive line is in bad shape. They're pretty much in shambles. And I think the Eagles, we thought that last time they were going to be able to compile 9 or 10 sacks, kind of like what they did to Carson Wentz a year ago. But I think that they should be able to at least compile 6 or 7 sacks this week. They struggle across the board to protect, and I think particularly when you look at what the Eagles have and how they match up, Jalen Carter, to me, and Fletcher Cox and Jordan Davis leaning on those linemen, really tiring them out, is going to free things up for Hassan Reddick, who's really been on a tear to come off the edge, and Josh Sweat. So I think you're going to see a lot of different guys end up in the SATCOM Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, that's something last year when they were in Washington. They got 9 of Carson Wentz. Andrew, last time they played Washington, I thought Washington had a good game plan, and they executed it well. A lot of quick stuff out there. You take a look at their offense, what they did last week. They had a tough day at the office against the Giants. What would concern you with this Washington offense? The last time they played, a lot of quick stuff. So can the Eagles now learn from that and combat that with what they have?
Well, you mentioned that. The only thing that really can can threaten the Eagles' defense is really the quick stuff, the stuff to Jahan Dotson, getting him in space. Curtis Samuel, to me, is their X factor. He's really good on the move and somebody that can take these jet sweeps and these short dump-offs and turn them into a big gain. Terry McLaurin has historically been someone who has given the Eagles trouble over the years, so you can never count him out. You don't just want to write them off. I think that they do have a pretty good 1 through 3 receiving core, and I think that when it comes down to it, the key to victory is going to be the applying pressure and alleviating the opportunity for them to make something happen down the field, and I think that that's where the game's going to be won.
Eagles on the offensive side of the ball, we saw 31 points last week. We're seeing a lot of A.J. Brown. I would imagine if it's kind of a don't fix it, but is A.J. Brown up for another 125 this week? Does he have a matchup that you like?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's going to continue to – you saw what happened in the first matchup, and you have to wonder if the rookie there is going to be sort of down on himself based on that performance. And that's a recipe for success. Feed A.J. the football. I think, when you get him going on some early screens and get the ball in his hands and he can really impose his will on a defense, that opens up the entire offense. And when you have a player who's on such a remarkable tear as A.J. Brown is, you have to force feed him the football. And he's playing at such an elite dominant level that I think he's a poor matchup for any secondary, but certainly I think he's going to be able to build upon what he did in that first matchup and should be able to eclipse the 100-yard mark with relative ease, I would say.
I'm talking with Andrew DiCecco, InsideTheBirds.com, Football at 4. Andrew, what are you seeing from the Eagles' running game recently? We saw, this team was having big yardage, ripping off big-time yardage. They were second in the league in the NFL. We haven't seen these huge rushing performances. Looking at that and saying the reason why that has been?
Well, you're right. You've seen the average drop, and I think that you may want to look to the adding Sua Opeta in at right guard. Cam Jurgens was playing at a really high level. Maybe it's hard for some folks to realize that. He kind of gets lost in there, and he doesn't have the size, the prototypical size for a position. But he was really playing at a high level, and the line in general, Mike, was playing at a really cohesive, sort of lockstep. And I think losing somebody like that can sort of impact that. But I also think it has to do with hitting the hole, right? Being decisive with your cuts and things like that. The holes just haven't really been there, but when they have been there, sometimes you're seeing some indecisions in the running game, and you have to wonder how the roles are going to shake out, right? Rashad Penny has not played at all really since week 3 and has been a non-entity. They don't have that power running game element. I thought Kenny Gainwell there's opportunities for him, but I don't think he's really stepped up and seized that number 2 role. So they really don't have. They have a lot of players that they could do things, but not a lot of players aside from DeAndre Swift that are going to be home run hitters or difference makers.
We started this conversation with Byard. The trade deadline is Halloween next week. Is there anything in your mind that Howie still should be looking to improve?
I still say safety as a depth player. I thought Kayvon Wallace would have been a great addition for this team because you don't know if Justin Evans, you don't know when or if he will come back. He's dealing with a significant injury. Anytime you're dealing with a neck injury, and you need somebody to provide snaps on special teams. Terrell Evans provided 50% of special team snaps through the 7 games here, and not having that really, you're asking someone like a Sidney Brown to take on a larger role there. He's going to, by all accounts, be the third safety. So I think that could be a sneaky add. Running back also. I mean, that's one that you may not think. But after just what we outlined there, outside of DeAndre Swift, I really do think that they can use a power running game element and maybe get you. They don't typically cost a lot, and I think you could be able to grab one for maybe a day 3 pick there. So those are. I mean, normally I would have said linebacker, Mike, but I really think that they patched it together with those 3 guys, Zach Cunningham, Kobe Dean, and Nicholas Morrow to be an effective unit, and they're providing so much pressure that they're not really getting exposed in coverage. So I think that they're okay there, as long as they were able to avoid the injury bug.
Yeah, in 17, when they won the Super Bowl, they had Blunt. Nobody thought about a running back. They went out and got Jay Ajayi. So, that would be an interesting one. I guess I would flip it around and say to you, do you have any thoughts on why Penny has not gotten an opportunity? Does he just look like he's got nothing left in the tank or what?
Nothing outside of speculation. Outside of just speculation, it doesn't look like he has a ton of juice left. Obviously, he's 27 years old, so he would be appearing to enter his prime, but he sustained a lot of injuries, and it just didn't look like he was hitting the hole with the authority that he has when he was with Seattle. And you also wonder about pass protection, right? You're not going to dress, you're not going to play or be a factor on game day if you're not adept in pass protection. Kenny Gainwell's good in that area. Boston Scott's pretty good in that area, and he also contributes as a kick returner. So you don't know. I don't really know where Rashad Penny fits. Yeah, you could say that they're maybe keeping him in bubble wrap for the postseason, but I don't know that that's a sound plan. I think there's something more than meets the eye there.
Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4. The Eagles are in Washington, and you can hear the game right here on 97.3 ESPN. And, of course, Football at 4 each and every day with the guy from InsideTheBirds.com. Andrew, appreciate it, bud.
Yep, talk next week.